What's going on, baseball fans? How are we doing? So supposedly there's a new addition to the trade market. His name is Juan Soto. I don't know if you know him. He's pretty good. But in this video, I'm going to go over 10 proposed trades from The Athletic, and I'm going to see if they're any good. Let's go talk about it. Before we get started, if you are new to the channel and you're looking for more baseball news and content, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the bell button, hit the share button, hit all the buttons. Okay, so here we go. Here's the article on The Athletic. Juan Soto trade sweepstakes, what these 10 teams can offer the Nationals. If you're wondering what it would take to get someone like Juan Soto, it's going to be quite a lot. He currently has a value a little under $200 million at the moment, and that's one of the highest valued players in all of Major League Baseball. How do you come up with that value? Well, if you go to baseballtradevalues.com, they break down how to value a major league player. Baseball Trade Values is the best baseball trade simulator out there, one of the best trade simulators out there in all of sports. If we take a look here, simply put, it's field value minus salary, and then you get the surplus, which is their value. How do you come up with the field value? Well, they take a look at a lot of things: wins above replacement, projections, inflation, years of control, injury risk, roster risk, and then you take away the salary, and then you get the value. So obviously, Juan Soto is very good. Let's go take a look at the first trade. And before I actually get to that, the most similar trade for a Juan Soto trade would probably be the Miguel Cabrera trade back in 2007, when Miguel Cabrera and a bad contract and Dontrelle Willis went to the Detroit Tigers, and going back to the Marlins, you had Andrew Miller, Cameron Maybin, and some other prospects. So most likely that's going to be the most similar trade here. So let's go take a look at the first trade. Let's start off with the Chicago Cubs. This was submitted by Sahadev Sharma of The Athletic. He has a deal built around Nico Hoerner, Justin Steele, Brennan Davis, Peter Crow Armstrong, Caleb Killian, and Christian Hernandez. If we take a look here at the trade, this is a big trade. 6 players for one guy. As you can see here, Soto, a value of $193.7, and this package is worth just under $145 million. So when it comes to the values, you're a little far off here. I'm telling you, it's going to take a lot to get Soto, but there is a way to get this done. Like I mentioned with the Miguel Cabrera trade, you had Dontrelle Willis also involved in that. He was not a great contract. So if we add in a bad contract here, maybe someone like Patrick Corbin, this gets a deal done. Could the Chicago Cubs maybe go get Juan Soto? He would be a transcendent player for that city. The Nationals would get a really strong package here. A couple outfielders. Christian Hernandez has a ton of upside, very young at the moment, still in rookie ball, very young player. Nico Hoerner's having himself a really good year. And then you get a couple of pictures here, Killian and Steele. I don't think this package is all that bad. I think it's a pretty strong start here from The Athletic. Let's move on to the crosstown rival Chicago White Sox. This one was submitted by James Fegan. Here's an offer that every White Sox fan could make a begrudging peace with. Outfielder Eloy Jimenez, first baseman outfielder Andrew Vaughn, shortstop prospect Colson Montgomery, outfield prospect Oscar Colas, and right-handed pitching prospect Norge Vera. If we go take a look here at the deal in the simulator, you're still around $100 million of value apart. However, he goes on to write, there's just the small issue that it wouldn't get anywhere close to a deal, which would have to be fronted with dynamic and productive talents like right-hander Dylan Cease and outfielder Luis Robert to gain attention over a field of ravenous buyers. Now, if you go take a look at these values from Robert and Cease, Robert is right around $125 million. Cease is right around $73 million. You would not have to put both of these guys into this trade. Honestly, I think if you just put Cease in, that's a pretty attractive looking trade. You're on the right track for just Soto. However, if the Nationals were willing to, or the White Sox were willing to take on Patrick Corbin, I mean, you might be on the right track here. And let's say maybe the Nationals, they send over a little bit of cash with Patrick Corbin. Let's say, I don't know, maybe around like $20 million or so. That puts you pretty close here. I think a deal with the White Sox, it's not crazy at all. You're having to give up a lot here. Giving up someone like Dylan Cease, who could be your future ace, that is really tough to swallow, especially someone like Andrew Vaughn as well, your first-round draft pick from a few years ago. Oscar Colas has a ton of potential. This is a big package for the Nationals to give up, but to get Juan Soto, it could be worth it. White Sox fans, let me know, would you do this trade? Moving out west to the LA Angels. This one was submitted by Sam Blum. I mean, come on. Do the Angels really need to go after Juan Soto? They've already had Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. They're just wasting away their careers. I mean, they're just going to waste away Juan Soto's career. So what's the point? However, let's take a look at the trade. Speaking of Shohei Ohtani, this actually involves Shohei Ohtani. Here's the deal. Juan Soto for Joe Adell, Anthony Rendon with cash, and Shohei Ohtani. I mean, this trade's pretty bad if you take a look at it. Putting a bad contract like Anthony Rendon, he's one of the worst contracts in Major League Baseball right now, as you see, right around negative $140 million. And even if I put in half of what he's owed, you're still extremely far apart here, even with Ohtani. And Ohtani has a ton of value. The difference with Ohtani and Soto is Ohtani is older than Soto. He's also had some injury problems in the past. Yes, Ohtani is one of the best players in Major League Baseball, but with Rendon in this deal, you're completely setting yourself back. Now, if you did a deal without Rendon here, maybe you did Ohtani and maybe a couple other pieces. I don't know. It might be pretty tough. Maybe someone like a Brandon Marsh could make some sense. Let's actually kind of fix this up a little bit. Let me take out Rendon and let me take out the cash as well. And maybe you might have something here if you're the Angels. You would have to give up Ohtani here. But with these three players, you're on the right track. But once again, let's throw in Patrick Corbin here. And Patrick Corbin, that's really going to offset a lot of Soto's value. And look at that. With these three players, Adell, Marsh, and Ohtani, you could get something done. But I don't see this happening. I don't know, man. I don't see it. To me, if I had the choice of Ohtani or Soto long term, I mean, honestly, I would go with Soto. 23 years old, basically the modern-day Ted Williams. Man, I would take Soto in a heartbeat. But let's be real here. The Angels would just waste away Juan Soto's career. I just don't see this happening at all. Let's move over to the crosstown rival, LA Dodgers. This one was submitted by Fabian Ardaya. Here is the deal. The Nationals send Soto and Strasburg to the Dodgers for Bobby Miller, Ryan Pepiot, Miguel Vargas, Andy Pages, and James Outman. If we take a look at the trade, I mean, Strasburg, that is such a bad contract. It's one of the worst in Major League Baseball at the moment. He would offset a ton of Soto's value. If the Dodgers would be willing to take on Strasburg in that contract, they would not have to give up as much value in terms of prospects. But for the Nationals, would they want that? I feel like the Nationals would want to get as many good prospects as they could. Now, if you take a look here, the Nationals are actually way ahead of the Dodgers in this trade. Strasburg does that much damage in terms of value for the Dodgers. However, if the Nationals were willing to send over some cash, let's throw in, I don't know, around $60 million or so, and then you're actually looking pretty even right now. So I wouldn't say this is completely out of the question for the Nationals. You're getting a couple of pretty good outfield prospects. I love me some Andy Pages. You're getting a couple of pitching prospects in Bobby Miller and Pepiot. Vargas is a pretty good hitter as well in their minor league system. I don't think this is completely out of the question. I think the Dodgers also, where they have an advantage, is they can give Soto a nice big contract extension. You'd have a lot of big contracts on that roster, especially with Strasburg as well. Mookie Betts, then Soto, and then Strasburg. I mean, come on, that's a ton of money right there. But I don't think this is completely out of the question for the Dodgers to go after Juan Soto. I don't even think you would have to part with Strasburg. You could probably throw in Corbin instead and then give up some other prospects as well. You got guys like Michael Busch in there, where you could take out Outman, put in Busch, and then you could throw in maybe another prospect there, and then you're actually probably pretty close. Let's actually put together a deal and see what that would look like. So here's the deal that I put together with the Dodgers. I took out Strasburg. I put in Corbin, who has a negative $54.6 million worth of value, and Soto at $193.7. That's a total value of $139.1. And the Nationals, what I did is I took out Outman, and I threw in Michael Busch and Ramos as well. So you're getting 6 prospects here. And if you look at the total values, they're actually pretty close. So I think the Dodgers, they could get a deal done even without Strasburg. You can take on Corbin instead. So I think the Dodgers definitely, they could be a threat for Juan Soto. Could you imagine if the New York Mets got in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes? That would be absolutely insane. This one was submitted by Tim Britton. I wonder if the Mets and the Nationals would be good trade partners, because obviously they're in the same division. I don't know if the Nationals would want to send Juan Soto to the Mets and have to deal with him. Most likely the Mets would sign him to a long-term extension. Would they want to deal with him for the next, 10 to 15 years? I don't know about that. I guess if they get a good enough package back, sure, maybe, but I don't know. But as for the trade, let's take a look here. The Mets could offer Francisco Alvarez, and that to me is a bit of a sticking point because the Nationals, they already have Keibert Ruiz. So are they going to want to also include Francisco Alvarez in their system? I don't know. But let's just move on here. Brett Baty, Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos, Alex Ramirez, and Matt Allen. If we take a look at the deal, also Corbin is in here as well because he mentions the Mets can take back a contract in the deal like Corbin or Strasburg. So here's the deal. Soto and Corbin, 139.1, and the Nationals getting a big package. And this is with Alvarez here, who is leading the way in terms of value. Now, if you take a look here, the Nationals are getting a lot more value back. So I think what you'd have to do is you would have to throw in, the Nationals would probably send in some cash to kind of even this out a little bit. So let's throw in, I say maybe around 30 million here. So let's put the Mets, let's do 30 million, and that brings it pretty close here. So I wouldn't count out the Mets as a possible trade partner. Again, you would be getting Alvarez back. So what happens with Keibert Ruiz? I don't know how you set that up. Those are two catchers of the future. I don't know. But in terms of value, I think the Mets could get something done. Up next, we have the crosstown rival New York Yankees. If I have to see Juan Soto in a Yankee uniform for the next 15 years, I might just jump off a cliff, to be completely honest. But this one was submitted by Mark Carrick. And this is not a good trade. If we take a look here, he's mentioning Gleyber Torres, Oswald Peraza, and Jason Dominguez, along with eating Corbin's contract. This is the worst trade on this list. Mark, what the heck are you doing here? You're representing the Yankees in this article. The New York Yankees, with all the firepower and the financial flexibility that they have, you're representing the Yankees, and you come up this short. Mark, what the heck are you doing, my friend? Dominguez, Peraza, and Torres? You don't even mention Anthony Volpe anywhere? You're going to have to put Volpe. Absolutely, you're going to have to put Volpe in this deal. Mark, what the heck are we doing here? Even if you throw in Volpe, they're still a little apart. So you're going to have to really throw in a couple of other prospects here. You're still around 30 million apart. But the fact that you don't even mention Volpe, like, what do you think you're going to be able to just get Soto for, some peanuts? I mean, what do you think this is? I mean, come on, Mark. We got to get it together over here. Let's head out west and talk about the San Diego Padres. This one was submitted by Dennis Lynn. I think the Padres are a very interesting team that could get in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes because they have a few good prospects at the top of their farm that could really get a deal done here. Let's take a look at what he's proposing. CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel III, and James Wood. If we take a look at that deal alone, without any bad contracts, you're actually getting pretty close here, but that's where the Padres start to run thin. You do have a couple of other prospects here that you could throw in, but if you just went with these four guys here, you could just take on Corbin's bad contract, and then actually the Nationals are getting more in return here. So let's say the Nationals, they throw in, I don't know, around $20 million worth of money. Let's take a look here. Going to the Padres. So if you take a look at this deal now, it's actually really even. Now, the question is, Padres fans, would you want to part? I would be okay. If I were a Padres fan and I was getting Juan Soto, I'd be okay with parting with Abrams. I'd be okay with that. And Hassel would too. But Gore, it would be really tough to swallow. He has finally gotten his act together this year. That would be tough, man, to give up on Gore. However, let's take out Gore. Let's see if maybe we could get something done here. Now, we got someone like Jackson Merrill who could possibly get something done, or at least you're getting a little closer here. You'd have to maybe throw in a couple other guys. I mean, you got Campusano, you got Savala here. Even if I threw in Savala, you're getting pretty close. Let's say I take out some cash. Let's take out the 20, and I throw in, hold on a second, what the heck is going on? Let's go back to the Nationals here. Let's take out the 20, and if we're looking at this package now, you could get a deal done. If you take on all of Corbin's salary, then you could get a deal done. I mean, look how close these values are. I mean, and this is without Mackenzie Gore. I mean, I think the Padres are very realistic here, and the fact that they get to keep their top pitching prospect with Mackenzie Gore. I mean, come on now. I mean, this looks like a pretty good deal if you ask me. Adding Corbin to you got a lot of pitching right now. I think the Padres are pretty realistic for Juan Soto. Staying out west, we have the Seattle Mariners. This one was submitted by Corey Brock. Here's the deal he's proposing. Shortstop prospect Noelvi Marte, right-hander Emerson Hancock, and outfielders Jared Kelenic and Jonathan Clase. Now, just like the Yankee trade submitted by Mark, it is really far apart. God, that Yankee trade was just so bad. Mark, what the heck are you doing, my friend? No Anthony Volpe? What are you doing? But with the Mariners here, this is really far apart. I do like Marte. I think you're going to have to start with him. I think Kelenic is actually a pretty nice piece to add here. He just hasn't gotten it going with Seattle. Maybe a change of scenery could do him some good. But you are still far apart here. Now, let's add in some pieces here with the Mariners. You don't have to add in Julio Rodriguez. You can keep Julio Rodriguez. But I think you're going to have to include someone like George Kirby, one of their top pitching prospects. He really does make up a ton of difference here in terms of value. He's actually worth more than Noelvi Marte. So Kirby, I do think you will have to include in this deal. So as of right now, you're around roughly around maybe $65 million apart. Now we can make up a huge difference here by adding in Patrick Corbin. So let's throw him in, and you're actually pretty close. You're actually pretty close here, around $10 million apart. I got one player on my mind from the Mariners. Let's throw in Harry Ford, man. Let's throw in Harry Ford, and that gets a deal done. I think the Mariners, they could go get Juan Soto. Remember, they didn't sign Ken Griffey Jr. long ago to an extension. Could this be their chance to make up for that? Sign Soto to a long-term deal. Having Soto and Julio Rodriguez in your outfield for years to come. I mean, Mariners fans, I think you would be completely okay with giving up Kirby and Marte if you had those two in your outfield for the next 10 to 15 years. Are you kidding me? I think the Mariners could potentially get a deal done. Up next, we got the St. Louis Cardinals. This one was submitted by Katie Wu. And, you know, she doesn't really propose a trade here, but she kind of starts off with a couple of pieces and then goes on to say that, you know, you would have to include several players. But the two big players that she proposed, well, she proposed a choice of either Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, or Dylan Carlson, along with Jordan Walker. I agree. I think you would have to start with two players like that, Jordan Walker especially. I put in Dylan Carlson because he could actually make up a ton of value here. He has a value right at around $73 million. Jordan Walker at just around $61.5. So just those two players alone, you're making up a ton of difference. Now, you could go the route like we have been with these other trades, including Patrick Corbin. That would just completely get that right there. The values, it's pretty much even at that point. But without Corbin, I think the Cardinals could get something done here. Let's take a look here. So you got someone like Mason Wynn in here. I mean, you got someone like Herrera possibly that you could throw in. Maybe Burleson, another outfielder that you could throw in here. And then a package like this could get something done. I don't know. The Cardinals, it doesn't seem to be their style to make a big splashy trade like this, but could you imagine Juan Soto, the modern day Ted Williams, on a classic team like the St. Louis Cardinals for years to come? Could this be the move that, you know, the big splash that the Cardinals make? I don't know. It doesn't really seem to fit their style, but if they really wanted to get something done, they definitely have a package that's worth looking at. So I don't know. I'd probably bet no on the Cardinals, but pretty attractive package if you ask me. Last but not least, we got the Toronto Blue Jays. This was submitted by Caitlin McGrath. Blue Jays fans, I can already see you're going crazy already. Let's take a look at what a deal would look like. The Nationals would get Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Kevin Biggio, Gabriel Moreno, their catching prospect, left-hander Ricky Tiedemann, and third baseman Jordan Groshans, along with shortstop Aurelvis Martinez and Nate Pearson. That's a ton of players right here. You got 6 players overall. If you take a look at the values, you still are far apart. Again, you could do that route with Corbin, and then you could get something done. So let's throw him in there. And, I mean, right there, that's a pretty even package. The only sticking point is Gabriel Moreno. I mentioned this earlier with Francisco Alvarez. Would the Nationals want Gabriel Moreno? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It just depends on what the Nationals would want. Maybe you could move one of them off of the catching position, possibly. Maybe one of them can play first. I don't know. But the Blue Jays, if the Nationals want Gabriel Moreno, you could get a deal done if the Blue Jays took on Corbin. And hey, the Blue Jays, they've been having some, pitching depth problems. They're starting to have some pitching depth problems. You got Ryu out. Yusei Kikuchi has not been good. Maybe adding someone like Corbin to that rotation, I don't know, could help them out. I think the Blue Jays definitely could be a threat. Remember, Buster Olney, about a little over a month ago, they were saying the Blue Jays, they would be aggressive in a trade for Juan Soto if he were to be on the market. I think a package like this, you definitely could get something done. Will the Blue Jays get it done? Will the Nationals want Gabriel Moreno? We'll have to just wait and see. So those are the trade proposals submitted by writers of The Athletic. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Do you like any of these trades? Do you think some other teams should get in on a Juan Soto trade? Let me know down below. Tell me some trades that you would do for Juan Soto. But that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.